Hello, and welcome to the We Are Power podcast. If this is your first time here, the We Are Power podcast is the podcast for you, your career, and your life. We release an episode every single Monday with listeners in over 60 countries worldwide, where you'll hear personal life stories, top-notch industry advice, and key leadership insight from amazing role models. As We Are Power is the umbrella brand to Northern Empowerment Awards, which celebrates hundreds of female role models and advocates every year. This is where you can hear stories from all of our awards alumni and stay up to date with everything MPW Awards and We Are Power. Hello, and welcome to the podcast. I am delighted this week to be joined not just one, but two amazing individuals from the Shakespeare North Theatre. Only been open 2 and a bit years, are we?
Yes, yeah? Moving into our 3rd year, yeah.
Jen Hardy and Lisa Allen, welcome to the podcast this week.
Thank you so much.
And you were both newish into this amazing venue. Tell us about it. Can you tell us in your highlights about the wonderful Shakespeare North?
Well, like I said, we're into our 3rd year. I think it's July, our 3rd birthday, isn't it? And the theatre itself is probably over 20 years in the making. So a group of academics came together a long time ago and thought it would be a great idea to bring back the Playhouse, which obviously there was an original Playhouse in Prescott many years ago. And it's taken that long, really, to get the resources and the funding together and to get everybody behind it. And I think, the council really bought into the idea and realised that dream. But everyone's been working really hard. Not me and you, because we're quite new.
But you've been coasting. Don't be saying that now.
We've just come in and taken the glory.
We're just taking the glory on the podcast. It's all good.
Yeah.
And what have you learned so much about it? What do you love so much about it already?
I think for me, so I'm in the learning and engagement team, and I trained as a teacher. I do a lot of improvised theatre. I've done a lot of work with young people who've experienced multiple traumas. So I think this role in my family are all from St. Helens. So it's in a space that's important to me. And it's a role that kind of amalgamates all of the things that I've done before. It just, maths, you've got those Venn diagrams. Yeah. It's kind of Shakespeare North sits right in the middle of that for me. So, I mean, even when I went for the job, I didn't tell anyone I was going for it because I didn't think I'd get it. So even when I got it, I was like, it's not true till I started. And then it wasn't true till I did my first workshop. And do you know what I mean? It's one of those jobs that's like a dream job, and it's actually as good as I thought it would be.
Oh, that's amazing. What about you? Because you came from home, didn't you, over in Manchester, which is an amazing venue.
Yeah, no, I worked at home for 3 years before coming. I mean, I've worked in theatre and the arts for 30 years. I've always loved Shakespeare, probably a bit like you. I had a really brilliant English teacher when I was younger, and she used to drive us. She used to just get a minibus and drive us to Stratford every year. And you probably wouldn't be able to do that now, but just really instilled
not without a parent slip.
No. Just had that real love of Shakespeare from an early age. So coming to the special thing about Shakespeare North is the theatre, isn't it? Like, it's magic.
It's beautiful.
When you walk into that space, I mean,
you can just smell it.
It makes the hairs stand up on your arms, and it's just a really magical space. And what a gift that we have that in the North, the only cockpit theatre, outside of London. And we've got it there in Prescott, in Knowsley, which is a real jewel, I think.
Yeah. And am I right in thinking it's 250,000 visitors so far, but only, and sort of, is it 10% had never ever visited a theatre in advance?
Yes, and more so with the young people that we work with. So when we get school groups or colleges or universities, way more than 10% of those young people have never been into a space like that, let alone into a theatre. So that figure is, I would say, quite a mild estimate, because we normally record an adult who are buying tickets. So when we think about the young people that we work with, I mean, I had a school in the other week from just down the road, and I think 3 children in that class of 30 had ever been to a theatre, and that was the Empire, to see a panto. So,
And there's a whole quotation, isn't it, that if you love what you do, you will never work a day in your life. And it feels like you've not worked for anything for the last 7 months. So yeah, either of you.
I don't know about that.
try telling the bags under my eyes.
Oh, you're just covering up now. No, what is it that, you've talked about the smell of the theatre, where you are, like culture. You worked in this industry have you always worked in culture?
I've always worked in the arts, yeah.
How did you know you wanted to do that? Was it?
I think from a very early age, I wanted to be an actor. And I was in youth theatre, right? Youth theatre is where I sort of found my love for theatre. I was at the Octagon Youth Theatre in Bolton.
Yeah.
I'm from Bolton, yeah. It's just always something. My mum always took us to galleries and took us to shows at the Palace Theatre, and I was just lucky really to be exposed to the arts, I suppose. My mum, she painted, so she was a bit of an artist herself. And I think it's what you're exposed to, isn't it? It's what you've got access to as a youngster.
We talk about visible role models, don't we?
Yeah.
And where you grow up and that enables. But did you ever think you were going to be able to do that for a living, right?
I just never wanted to do anything else, really. And I was just I think because I'd been in a youth theatre, I was in a theatre, so I knew that there were jobs. Yeah. And that's not to say that I haven't always felt like an imposter, because I have. Because the arts is also can be a little bit kind of secretive, I suppose. And I have felt that, in my career. I don't feel like that at Shakespeare North, interestingly, but maybe that's because of the team are not like that, are they? It feels very different, actually, at Shakespeare North.
How did you get over those moments? Because I always like a top tip and a hack, if you like. How did you, when you had that moment where you thought, do I feel like I shouldn't be here, or I'm good enough, or how did you counter that? Was it through mentorship? Was it advice? Was it just breathing in and doing the Wonder Woman pose?
I think deep down, I always knew that I had a right to be there. And just because you don't talk the same as everybody else, or, you're not from that background, it doesn't mean that you're not meant to be there. And actually, I just knuckled down and proved it through hard work and the things that I was doing. And most of my work has been, it's not the normal route through to chief exec. Most of my work has been participatory work and work with communities. So I had a good balance of going for a brew in a community centre. So,
And what about you, Jen? What was because we always talk that on this podcast, irrespective of what career, what sector, what level you're at, nobody has one set path. There is no one straightforward path, is there? No. What was your adventure?
Well, I was like,
because I sense it was.
I was obsessed from being a child with being a teacher, to the point that my poor mum would have homework to do set by me and stuff. And I was just.
How did she do?
Oh, she's very clever. She's a mentor. Oh. She hates that I say it. So I'm saying.
Sorry, Mum. Sorry, Jen's mum.
She's the lizard and she's brilliant. But yeah, so I was obsessed with being a teacher. And then I became a teacher, trained at Hope Uni. And then I was like, oh, this is a lot of admin, isn't it? This is a lot of, there's not a lot of time with the children. There's a lot of time doing other stuff and battling the bureaucracy of it and that kind of, I guess, toxicity of competition within a school and things. I was just like, that is not for me. But I took all of those skills and I did the leap and I went and worked in children's centres and loved it. And I was doing community and volunteer and outreach and getting people who'd never been into work back into work, and I just loved it. And I was running workshops for adults. And then I got into improvisation because I went to see a friend in a show and it wasn't very good. And I thought, I bet I could do that better. So I was like, right, I better go and do it then. So I did improv and then fell in love with that. And then I was like, there must be a way to do both of these things together. And a bit like you, I just kind of found found a way to do it, I guess.
Where there's a will, there's a way, right?
Yeah, and like, if there was an opportunity, you kind of try and make it for yourself, don't you? You send out cold calls and emails to people, and you make mates with people. And yeah, I moved back to Liverpool in 2021 because I'd lived in the Midlands. And I was like, right, when I move back, I'm going to meet every creative that I can, every director, every producer. And I met Siobhan, who works in Shakespeare North, became friends with Siobhan and said, if there's ever a job come up, will you let me know? And she said, yeah, and she did. So
that's the power of, people think about, we talk a lot about networking, and it's not about throwing business cards at each other, is it? It's about building those relationships, building those connections, and you find the real ones, and and being part of those communities. And I love that one of the core values you live by, Lisa, is that whole theatre must be for and by the community.
Yeah.
That's key for you, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the work I've always done. And that work isn't always front and centre in theatres. But I really feel like if you're going to build something like Shakespeare North in a place like Prescott and Knowsley, then it kind of has to be.
Yeah.
That has to be our reason for being. And actually, everybody that works at Shakespeare North really cares about that connection to community, and it is as passionate as we are. And you don't find that everywhere. Normally, or sometimes, the participation department feels a bit like a tag on, and it's not like proper theatre.
Yeah.
But that's not the case at Shakespeare North at all. And we all really believe that is a place for people.
Yeah.
And it's building that community within that.
Yeah.
And I think there must have been some real successes and surprises along the way. And I know you guys are new into the role, but you will have inherited great stories and some great stuff that's happened.
Oh yeah, and like from like small projects. So we work with the council in the holidays around holiday activities and food called HAF. Lots of organisations around the city do it, but we started doing that last summer, and from that they kind of grew a group who they just come back into the theatre to charge their phone, to go to the toilet after school, to see Morven, who works in the engagement team. And then there was an opportunity there to work with those young people, and we ended up getting some money from the National Lottery and the Heritage Fund to do a project. And then from that we've created a group called Raise Your Voice on a Tuesday, and they come in every Tuesday, but they'll come in the week to say hello, to charge the phone, to ask how our weeks are going, so they're young people who before us would never have stepped into a theatre.
It's that place of belonging, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what it's,
That's
what
happens,
they call it the Shakespeare or our Shakespeare.
Yeah, that's nice.
Has it not been shortened yet? Come on, we're in the north of England. Everything gets
Yeah.
shortened.
I know, we're just up to the Shakespeare
surely.
now.
Yeah.
Or Shaky North sometimes.
Yeah.
What part has theatre got in that real catalyst for change? You think it's not actors on a stage.
No.
It's not that
Yeah.
behind the scene. It's more than that, isn't it? So much more.
It is more than that. And the social value of actually participating in something, not just coming to watch something.
Yeah.
There's value in both of those
Yeah.
things, of course, because you can see something that resonates with you and it can create a dialogue. But if you actually feel like you're taking part in that, or you are doing something that is a really safe environment and a way for you to work something out that is affecting your community or your life, then theatre is the ideal, or the arts in general is the ideal tool to do that, because it does provide that safe environment to work things out a little bit.
It's interesting because the sense to me about what you're part of and what you're driving and leading and growing and educating on is innovation.
Yeah.
You are innovating through theatre, through conversation, through community, through performance. And sometimes we talk about it as part of our awards. We have an inclusive innovation category that it's been really hard to educate on, because people think of lab coats and drones when you think of innovation.
Science.
When this is human-centred people innovation, and it's so important. The fact that you, within a short period of time, have created this sense of belonging. That's how you build communities. That's how you create safe places, enable people to flourish. I've got goose pimples. I'm not going to lie.
And like, you don't know what you don't know, do you? So there's pockets of communities who would never imagine that a theatre was for them. And I think even the fact that we are open most days from 11 a.m. and we've got chatty cafes going on, board game sessions, shared reading in association with the reader. Do you know, we've got things that happen in the daytime, which technically they've got nothing to do with like a play or theatre, but they do. They have everything to do with that because you're giving people their space back, aren't you?
Yeah.
And that's me sort of requote. I love this. I feel like this is if I was brave enough to have a tattoo, which I'm not, but you know, it's got to be for and by the community. So and that's where that innovation is taking place in front of your eyes. And you talk, Lisa, about social value and social impact. That's something that I think we as an organisation are kind of a joke because it was one of a big auditor, one of the big fours came, Simone, the stuff that you're doing around connectivity and creating opportunities and this sort of enabling and building social capital, social value, it's just several years ago. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. And I just didn't quite appreciate what it was. I thought it was another buzzword, another phrase. And I think that for me, social value now is really to take front and centre and so important, and that every organisation is driving it and has to drive it. And it's, I think what we have to really look at now is what that social impact is now. And you're doing that, aren't you? You know, on a day-by-day basis.
Yeah. I mean, I've always done it. It's nothing like, you know, when you talk about innovation, it's like, I just feel like it's been here forever.
Yeah.
And there are lots of theatre practitioners that we can, you know, look back on and think, you know, it's always that socially engaged practice has always been there. But I think it's become less important over the years. And now I think just because of where we are and who is on our doorstep, I think we've got a really unique opportunity to just really shout about it a bit more and to prove how, you know, how great that is for a community, not just in making people feel good about themselves, but regenerating an area. When you look at the cultural driver in Prescott being Shakespeare North, in terms of that regeneration, Prescott looks completely different to, you know, a few years ago before the theatre arrived. And that high street, the regeneration of that high street, for example, is, you know, is proof that culture is really important, actually.
And that is that catalyst effect, isn't it? That is that multiplier effect that a borough that has been one of the most deprived areas in the city region has regenerated by storytelling, by community building. You know, you might think of that. You don't hear this being talked about. It gets frustrating sometimes. You think of this as this particularly here, the north of England, we're so rich in culture.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Yeah.
Yet it can get overlooked and not invested in.
Yes.
You know? So what would you do if you had a magic wand?
Oh, gosh.
You can have more than one, you know, you can double up here. It's all good.
I think, so on the drive here, so me and Lisa don't get much time together in work because I'm always up and down with a group of young people and working in a workshop, and Lisa's trying to make sure that we've got enough money and enough people in the room that need to be there to help us do that. So it was really nice on the way here. We were chatting about kind of what are our passions and what drives us. And I think it's less about having a magic wand and it's more about like knowing that you've got the right people with the right skills in the right space to be able to do something which has like a future past you, past your role. Because, I mean, and it happens all the time with grants and stuff, doesn't it? It's 10 grand to a project. Yeah. And we're always thinking, what next? Yeah. What next for those young people? Because we drop opportunities and then we take them away. And do you know, that's the kind of funding world that we live in. Whereas actually for me, the solution or the magic wand or whatever you want to call it is consistency for young people and a community who have so often had, here's an opportunity, well done, 2008's gone now, here's an opportunity for someone else. So it's making sure that people feel valued consistently, I think.
And I think that opportunity, that ongoing opportunities is key, you know, and have to be intentional about it. It can't have a life cycle because that can be so destructive, can't it? If not. So, you know.
I mean, Shakespeare North, regardless of who's running it or who works in it, has to become part of the scaffolding that sits around a community, and it's not about funding streams. You know, we could all sit here and go, yeah, we'd love another £100,000 to do whatever, but actually, we don't actually need it, do we? Because we've got good people and we've got communities, and we just need to start thinking a little bit differently about how we use those resources and how we share what we've got, because there is no more money coming, actually.
Yeah, there's no magic pot, is there?
No.
And some of the most important, like precious work that we do, like, isn't the work that brings in any revenue or money, or do you know what I mean? So,
but it fills your heart, right?
Exactly. So we've just done a project with Oakbridge, which is an SEN school nearby, and their post-16 provision. So they're kind of college sixth form students, and we had 12 students who I worked with for 10 weeks. And then they did a showcase on Friday in our theatre space, and they decorated the space how they wanted with all of the work that they've been doing. They stood up and said who they were, what they want to do in future. Some of them read poetry that they've created. Some of them are even standing up in front of an audience and me reading on their behalf, or their teacher reading on their behalf. It's a huge step. Their parents were there. These are parents who might fear that their children are never going to be able to go into the big wide world without them. So for me, that's the important thing about what we do. Not necessarily the big shiny shows, which are brilliant, but that's just the cherry on the top.
But that comes with intention. And I think what strikes me from both of you, and it's interesting that, you know, you're relatively new, but really accomplished in your roles. You've just had some good like team building time on the journey over here. But it appears to me that this is an environment, the culture of this environment you've created enables you literally taking your whole self into work.
Yeah.
Like, everyone is welcome. Everyone is inclusive. You can play a board game. You can come and say hi and have a brew. You can you be you.
Yeah.
And that can be rare, can't it? When you think there's so much space out there, sometimes it's not welcoming or inclusive.
No.
Yet you have created this beautifully inclusive space. And it was the wonderful Michelle Eagleton, who's a broadcaster and host and gets involved in our awards. And it was her probably last summer when, oh my gosh, it was her who connected me in with you guys. Because we're talking about, you did an amazing performance of Romeo and Juliet.
With Grey Eye Theatre Company,
Yeah, and she was so blown away. Tell us about that. I don't know that was before your time or not, but
so
the impact it had on her passed it on to me. Yeah. And ultimately, that's why we're here now, and watch this space. We don't know where we're going to go from here, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so Grey Eye are a disabled, deaf and neurodiverse theatre company who we'd already done some work with on various projects and stuff, but it was a co-production. So we do 3 co-productions a year. With different theatre companies, and it was one of the co-productions. But Grey Eye had really worked with the team around training. So we'd had training around how to be inclusive, accessible, and understanding kind of various disabilities and things and access needs. So the production was really like built into the theatre. All of their rehearsals happened in the theatre. We made sure that we developed resources that went alongside the shows. Us in the engagement team changed some of our workshops to meet the needs of kind of the theatre company and what they were doing and stuff. And it was just a joyful show, even though it was Romeo and Juliet. Do you know what I mean? It's shock how everyone dies in the end, but it was joyful.
Spoiler alert.
I know, sorry. You've not read it by now.
But that young people, you know, this has changed your world from wanting to be a teacher or being a teacher, having the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
This comes back to the dream job again, doesn't it?
Yeah. how good that's like. I get to watch like a dress rehearsal, and I'm paid as part of my job to watch a dress rehearsal. Like that's mad to me.
And it is that culture piece. And, you know, when you come into an organisation, you're assessing that culture, aren't you? Yeah. You know, how have you been able to bring the Lisa factor into it as well? Because it is about leadership. That's a
We're coining that.
Oh, are you? There you go, take it.
That's your next tattoo.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm just at the start of that journey, really. And I don't know whether you know what impact you're having, because I'm not somebody who asks for that kind of feedback either, really. But I've just presented a 5-year vision to all the staff, the board and all of our volunteers and the council. And I feel like it went down really well, and I got some really good questions and feedback. So, and a lot of that, of course, was, talking about what we're going to be taking out of the building in terms of community development work, because you can't just open a lovely building and then expect everyone to come in.
Yeah.
We've still got a lot of work to do. It's great. But, I was walking around Kirby Market the other week and no one's heard of Shakespeare North. So there's work to be done.
Yeah.
But I felt like it landed really well and people appreciated it, and it's what people wanted, I think. So we'll see. But I walked into the most welcoming space ever. People in Manchester talk about how welcoming Shakespeare North is. So that's nothing to do with
That's
me.
across boundaries there, isn't it?
That's all them. I was lucky to just walk into that. So yeah.
And what are you excited about, Jen? Because a little birdie tells me that someone's about to train to be a clown.
Yeah.
Of course you are, right?
Yeah, of course, obviously.
Was that part of the appraisal? Was that the car journey? I don't know. Tell me about that.
Yeah, part of the probation. No, so I applied for the Arts Council's Developing Your Creative Practice Fund, which they do, I think, 2 streams a year. For individual artists to apply for money, not with an end goal of like a show or anything. It's just to develop yourself as an artist. And any other job I was in they wouldn't give me the time to do that. Do you know what I mean? They wouldn't give me the flexibility. But when I spoke to Ivana, who's my boss, the head of engagement, she was like, "Yeah, do you need help with it? Like, what do you need?" So yeah, I'm trying to develop myself as a spontaneous theatre maker. I do a lot of improv, but clowning sits so comfortably alongside that. So I am going to London for 2 weeks in June to do How to Be a Stupid by an amazing clown practitioner called De Castro. So, and the theatre were like, how can we help? What can we do? When you come back, like, what does that look like for you? And I mean, imagine being a teacher and going and doing that. They'd be like, yeah, but have you done your marking? Do you know? So it's it's a very exciting opportunity.
Wow. I mean, that's something for the portfolio, isn't it? I'm not going to, at least we'll have something up our sleeve, but we'll maybe, what are you most excited about going forward?
Oh, I'm excited about everything. There's so many opportunities. I think Prescott as a place, I'm really interested in what that visitor experience can look like in the next 5 years, really kind of leaning into looking at further investment, further regeneration, all driven, of course, by culture. And then I just really want, it's so magical, that theatre. I would just really love, even if they're not coming to see a show, but just coming in to see that theatre. I want everybody in Knowsley to just have seen it, just been in and had a look.
You need to get knocking on them doors.
Hopefully. Well, yeah, I am not adverse to knocking on doors.
And Jen, what advice would you give to your younger self? Someone listening out there today is going, I'm here. I thought I wanted to do this, but I want to be a clown. No, you don't. I want to be me. I want to go and be in a space where I can be me. How? Because Lisa's the magic maker, making the culture, or retaining and building the culture. But how can you, someone out there going, oh, I don't think I can ever have that Jen opportunity?
I think there's always someone who's willing to give you advice and help you, and just reaching out to women who have done similar or are doing similar. Like the amount of people that I've gone, you know what, I'm doing this application, can you help me? Like Alice, who works for Rubber Shakespeare Company, sat with me for hours and helped me with my application. She didn't need to do that. Like, I might have bought her a pint, but do you know what I mean? That's like, so I think
good currency, that,
it
Jen.
is good currency. But just reach out to people, and there'll be someone who's either been there, they've done it, they've failed at it, they've succeeded, that'll give you advice. Mm-hmm. And also, like, you're infinitely more interesting than you can ever imagine, and you're probably more talented than you think. So, like, especially as women, we don't believe those things. So it's just, like you said, knowing it in your gut, even if you don't feel it every day, and just, your words are powerful, aren't they? If you tell yourself something every day, you're more likely to believe it.
And I think what you've just said there, which I can't repeat because it's too many phrases, but that's that. And Lisa, your philosophy about, built I'm going to have to read it now. Built for and by the community. They're my tote bags. They're the things that you want on your tote bag and your T-shirt moment. And I hope to see those, not just around the streets of Prescott and wider, but everyone coming through the doors. And equally, where you're taking that message out, because there's so much that can be learned by this amazing industry. Look at you, the smiliest people, like the happiest, the proudest people. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm looking forward to coming over. I'm looking forward to seeing the result of
the clown and
show.
The one person show. I'm looking forward to seeing how we can create opportunities, because we can all intentionally work together to create opportunities for others, and ask people for help is also a big shout out. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Jem, for joining me. Thank you so much. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple, Amazon Music, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a review or follow us on socials. We are power_net on Insta, TikTok and Twitter. Or We Are Power on LinkedIn, Facebook. And We Are _power on YouTube.